A stone that costs $10,000 can develop a crack from nothing more than a change in humidity. A stone that costs $100 can be worn every single day for the next 50 years and come out the other side without a scratch. If you assumed the expensive one was automatically the safer choice, you are not alone, and you are not wrong to think that. That is exactly what the jewelry industry wants you to assume. The truth is that price and durability in the gemstone world have almost nothing to do with each other. Some of the most expensive stones on the market are also some of the most fragile, the most heavily treated, and the most likely to lose value the moment you walk out of the store. And some of the stones sitting in the discount case, the ones most people walk straight past, are harder, tougher, and more likely to still be in perfect condition when you hand them down to your children. The industry has trained you to ask the wrong questions. How rare is it? How big is it? How much does it sparkle under the showroom lights? They do not want you asking the one question that actually matters. Will this survive being worn? Will this hold its value? Or am I paying a premium for a name and a story that falls apart the moment you look at the actual mineral science? Today, we are doing this differently. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which 4 gemstones are quietly costing buyers a fortune in repairs, replacements, and lost resale value, and which 6 gemstones are sitting right there in plain sight, offering real durability and real beauty for a fraction of the price everyone assumes they need to pay. Here is how we are doing it. We are splitting 10 gemstones into 2 lists. First, the 4 that are costing you a fortune, the stones with a reputation that outruns their actual performance. Then, the 6 that are actually worth it, the stones that deliver more hardness, more durability, and more everyday wearability than anything sitting in the high-priced case next to them. Let's start with the one that costs the most and disappoints the most. Number 4 on the costing you a fortune list is the emerald. Emeralds sit in the same mineral family as aquamarine. Both are types of beryl, but where aquamarine is famous for being clean and durable, emerald is famous in the trade for something very different. Almost every emerald that reaches a jewelry counter is heavily included, meaning it is full of natural internal fractures, and almost every one of those stones has been treated with oil or resin to fill those fractures and make the stone look clearer than it actually is. That treatment is not a rare exception. It is standard practice across the entire industry, to the point where an untreated emerald is considered a genuine rarity and priced accordingly. Here is the part that costs people money. That oil treatment is not permanent. Over months and years, the oil can dry out, seep out, or break down, and the fractures that were hidden begin to show again. Jewelers call it bleeding, when the color appears to fade or cloud from the inside. On top of that, emerald sits at only 7.5 on the Mohs hardness scale. But because of how included it is, its real-world toughness is far lower than that number suggests. A hard knock against a countertop, a car door, a gym weight, can cause a visible chip or crack in a stone that someone paid several $1,000s for. People are not just paying a premium for the color. They are paying a premium for a stone that requires babying for the rest of its life, and most buyers are never told that at the counter. Number 3 is Tanzanite. If you have shopped for colored stones in the last 20 years, you have almost certainly heard the pitch. Tanzanite is only found in one place on Earth, a small mining area near Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, and the marketing around it leans hard into the idea that the mine is running out, that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, that prices will only climb from here. Some of that scarcity is real, but scarcity is not the same thing as durability, and it is not the same thing as long-term value. Tanzanite sits at 6 to 7 on the Mohs scale, which is soft enough that everyday wear, a ring bumping against a desk, a keyboard, a car seat belt, will slowly dull its finish and leave it looking scratched within a few years of daily wear. It is also strongly pleochroic, which means it shows different colors depending on the angle it is cut and viewed from, and that makes it genuinely difficult to cut without either losing carat weight or losing color intensity. Cutters are constantly trading one for the other. And because the market has been driven so heavily by manufactured urgency rather than by actual industrial demand the way diamonds or gold are, Tanzanite prices have historically been far more volatile than buyers are told. It photographs beautifully. It does not wear like a stone that belongs in daily jewelry, and it does not hold value the way the sales pitch implies. Number 2 is opal, specifically the popular precious white and black opals sold in mainstream jewelry stores. Opal is unlike almost every other gemstone on this list because it is not a crystal at all. It is a mineraloid made of tiny silica spheres with water trapped between them, and that water content is exactly what causes the problem. Opal sits at only 5.5 to 6 on the Mohs scale, making it one of the softest stones commonly sold as fine jewelry, and it is prone to something called crazing, a network of fine surface cracks that develop when the stone loses moisture over time. Dry climates, forced air heating in winter, even prolonged sun exposure, can slowly dehydrate an opal and cause it to crack from the inside out, sometimes within just a few years of purchase. There is no fixing crazing once it happens. The stone simply degrades. And yet opals, especially larger black opals with strong play of color, routinely sell for thousands of dollars, marketed on their rarity and their visual uniqueness, with almost no mention at the counter of how fragile and high maintenance the stone actually is. People are buying a piece that requires specific humidity conditions to survive, and finding that out only after the damage has already happened. Number 1. The gemstone costing buyers the most relative to what they actually get is the fancy color-treated diamond. Not natural fancy color diamonds, which are genuinely rare and hold real value, but the far more common lab-created color treatments applied to ordinary white diamonds through irradiation and high-pressure, high-temperature processing to produce blacks, blues, greens, and vivid yellows at a fraction of what a natural fancy color stone would cost. These treated stones are real diamonds, and the treatments are permanent, but the price structure around them is where the real damage happens. A treated black or blue diamond can be marked up and sold as though it carries the same rarity premium as a natural fancy color stone, when in reality, the base material is often lower-grade white diamond that would not have sold well on its own. The moment you try to resell a treated color diamond, jewelers and buyers know exactly what it is, and the resale value collapses to a fraction of the original purchase price, sometimes 20 or 30% of what was paid. It is one of the only stones on this list where the mineral itself is completely durable. Diamond is still the hardest natural material on Earth, but the value you are told you are buying largely does not exist once you try to cash it back out. Those are the 4 costing people a fortune, not because the stones are inherently bad, but because the price does not match the reality of what you are getting, whether that reality is hidden fragility, manufactured scarcity, or a resale value that was never really there. It is worth pausing on why these 4 in particular keep showing up in jewelry boxes despite these problems. Part of the answer is simply momentum. Emerald, Tanzanite, and opal all built their reputations decades or even centuries before modern gemology had the tools to fully explain their weaknesses. And by the time that information became widely available, the marketing machinery around each stone was already too large to slow down. Treated color diamonds are a newer problem, built on the back of diamonds' genuine cultural authority. A jeweler can point to a real diamond certificate and technically tell the truth about what the stone is, while leaving out the part where the color was created in a lab process rather than by nature. None of that is illegal. Almost all of it is legal, standard, and disclosed somewhere in fine print. It is just rarely explained out loud at the counter, which is exactly why so many buyers end up finding out the hard way, usually when they try to insure the piece, resell it, or bring it in for a repair and hear a very different story than the one they were sold. Now here is where this gets interesting, because the next 6 stones on this list solve every single one of those problems, and most of them cost a fraction of what you would expect to pay. Starting the actually worth it list at number 6 is garnet. Most people picture garnet as the deep red stone in old family jewelry, but garnet is actually a whole family of minerals that comes in nearly every color except blue, from vivid green savorit to warm orange spessartite. Garnet sits at 6.5 to 7.5 on the Mohs scale, depending on the variety, tough enough for daily wear in rings and bracelets. And because it is mined in significant quantities across multiple continents, it has never been subject to the kind of manufactured scarcity pricing that drives up stones like Tanzanite. A well-cut garnet with strong color can be purchased for a small fraction of what a comparable colored stone from a marketed brand name would cost, while offering equal or better everyday durability. Number 5 is amethyst. Amethyst is a variety of quartz, and quartz as a category is one of the most durable common gemstone materials available, sitting at 7 on the Mohs scale, which is hard enough to resist scratching from most everyday contact, including sand, keys, and typical desk surfaces. Amethyst has been prized for literally thousands of years, worn by royalty and clergy long before mass mining made it widely available, and that historical pedigree has not disappeared just because the price has come down. What has changed is availability. Amethyst is now mined at large enough scale that even large, deeply saturated purple stones remain genuinely affordable, meaning you can buy a large, eye-catching center stone for a ring or pendant at a price point that would only get you a small accent stone in most other colored gems. Number 4 is aquamarine. This is the beryl family done right. Where its cousin emerald is famous for internal fractures and mandatory treatment, aquamarine is famous in the trade for the opposite. Exceptional natural clarity straight out of the ground, with very little need for the kind of oil or resin treatment that makes emerald so high maintenance. Aquamarine sits at 7.5 to 8 on the Mohs scale, genuinely tough enough for a daily wear ring, and its cool blue tone reads as elegant and expensive without carrying anywhere near the price tag of sapphire in similar sizes. It is one of the few colored stones where a large, clean, eye-clean center stone is realistically affordable rather than something reserved for a handful of ultra-rare pieces. Number 3 is spinel. If you have never heard of spinel, that is exactly the problem this stone has had for centuries. For most of history, spinel was mistaken for ruby and sapphire, since it forms in the same geological environments and can display the same vivid reds, pinks, and blues. Several famous stones, long believed to be rubies in royal collections, were later identified as spinel once gemology advanced enough to tell them apart. Spinel sits at 8 on the Mohs scale, has excellent brilliance and fire, comes in an extremely wide color range, and because it never built up the centuries of marketing history that ruby and sapphire have, it remains dramatically underpriced relative to how it actually performs on the hand. For anyone who wants a genuinely rare, genuinely tough stone without paying a ruby or sapphire markup, spinel is close to the best-kept secret in the entire colored gemstone market. Number 2 is sapphire, and specifically, sapphire outside of the classic blue. Blue sapphire carries a heavy premium purely because of tradition and demand, but sapphire as a mineral species, corundum, comes in nearly every color: pink, yellow, green, peach, and even colorless. All of them share the exact same properties that make blue sapphire so trusted. A hardness of 9 on the Mohs scale, second only to diamond, along with excellent resistance to scratching, chipping, and fading over decades of daily wear. Choosing a non-blue sapphire gets you a stone that will genuinely outlast most of the other gems on this list, at a price point that can be a fraction of what the same size and clarity would cost in traditional blue. Number 1, the stone offering the single best combination of durability, brilliance, and price on this entire list is moissanite. Originally discovered in microscopic quantities in a meteor crater and now grown in laboratories, moissanite sits at 9.25 on the Mohs scale, making it harder than sapphire and second only to diamond among gems used in jewelry. It also has a higher refractive index than diamond, which means it actually produces more fire, more of that rainbow-colored sparkle, than a diamond of the same cut. For decades, it was marketed primarily as a diamond substitute, and some buyers still see it that way. But on its own merits, it is simply one of the toughest, most brilliant gem materials available at any price point, sold for a small percentage of what an equivalent diamond would cost. For anyone prioritizing a stone that will not scratch, will not chip, and will not require special care for the next 50 years, while still delivering serious visual impact, moissanite is very hard to beat. So here is where that leaves the 10 stones we just went through. Emerald, Tanzanite, Opal, and treated color diamonds all carry price tags built on rarity, marketing, and tradition, while quietly requiring the kind of careful handling, storage, and long-term babying that most buyers are never warned about before they pay. Garnet, Amethyst, Aquamarine, Spinel, Sapphire, and Moissanite deliver equal or greater everyday toughness, in some cases dramatically greater, at price points that in several cases are less than a tenth of what the first list commands. None of this means the first 4 stones are worthless, or that no one should ever buy them. Emerald and Tanzanite in particular remain genuinely beautiful, and if you understand exactly what you are buying, the treatments, the hardness limitations, the care requirements, they can absolutely be worn and enjoyed responsibly. What matters is that you are making that choice with the full picture, instead of paying a premium built on a story the industry never finishes telling you. There is also a practical takeaway buried in this list that goes beyond any single stone. Hardness on the Mohs scale is not a marketing term. It is a measurable physical property, and it is one of the few pieces of information about a gemstone that has nothing to do with branding, mine location, or historical prestige. A stone at 9 on the Mohs scale will, on average, outlast a stone at 6 on the Mohs scale in daily wear, regardless of which one costs more at the register. The same is true of treatment history. A stone that reaches you in its natural, untreated state will generally hold its condition and its value more predictably over decades than a stone that depends on an artificial process, whether that is oiling, irradiation, or fracture filling, to look the way it does on day one. Neither of those facts shows up in most store displays, because neither of them helps sell the more expensive stone in the case. They are, however, exactly the kind of facts that separate a purchase you will still be happy with in 20 years from one that quietly disappoints you the first time it gets bumped against a doorframe. It is also worth saying plainly that price and beauty are not the same axis as price and value. A $500 Spinel ring and a $5,000 emerald ring can both be stunning to look at across a dinner table. The difference only shows up later in how each one ages, how each one survives an accidental knock, and how each one performs if you ever need to sell it, insure it, or pass it down. Buying jewelry with that timeline in mind, rather than just the moment you walk out of the store, is the single biggest shift that separates an informed buyer from someone who finds out the hard way 5 years later. If this changed how you look at the stone sitting in your own jewelry box, that is exactly the point of this channel. We break down what the industry doesn't say out loud, one piece at a time. If you want the next breakdown, the moment it goes live, make sure you are subscribed and drop a comment letting us know which gemstone you want us to put under the microscope next.